All right, so the first thing I'm going to say has nothing to do with the topic I'm going to talk about. It's just a thanks report to the Lord. Actually, I was, you guys know the story of the 10th leper, or the lepers? Yeah. And it's only the 10th leper that comes back and says thank you. So I told you the story. I was out in Fitchburg at the opt-out of pot shops. You guys remember that story on Monday? Well, I didn't tell you, or maybe I told you I got my wallet stolen while I was out there on the Main Street. And so I was, it was 11 o'clock at night. I was on the side roads, the alleyways of Fitchburg. I don't know if you've ever been in Fitchburg in the alleyways at 11 o'clock at night, but it's not the safest place to be. So anyway, I was really bummed. Have you ever lost your wallet? You can raise your hand. You ever got your wallet stolen? All right. Well, anyway, it was about 24 hours later. I checked my messages. And I was gonna play you this because it was so awesome.
Hi, Michael. My name is Jen. I actually lost my dog.
Can you hear that?
And I found your wallet.
All right, hold on.
Walking her dog and she found your wallet. Yeah.
You got good hearing. So this lady Jen calls me from Fitchburg. She's got a Rhode Island number actually, and she was walking her dog, and her dog sniffed under a bush, and while he was going to the bathroom, and found my wallet. So that was awesome. So they mailed it to me, and it'll be at my house when I get home. So that's awesome. All right. So I want to show you guys a couple videos. This is on the theme of what you can do. And again, I want to show you another video that my wife did, a spoken word. You guys enjoyed that other one she did?
Yes.
All right, well, in our society, we have an epidemic on, we have an epidemic, as you know, of divorce. And there's this really convenient thing called the no-fault divorce. You guys ever heard of that?
Yeah.
No-fault divorce? So anyway, my wife put together this video, and I think it's really effective. And you can go on spokenword4him.com and check out her stuff. She also wrote a children's book as well. But anyway, I want to show you this video. It's about 5 minutes. Can we get the lights right there on the... Or maybe it's there. Yeah. Awesome. All right, thanks.
A promise, a marriage covenant made between a man and his wife, till death do us part, meant to keep your whole life. Have you ever made a promise? It's on its own easy to do when you think that the promise will ultimately satisfy you. When all the tender emotions of romance and ceremonial bliss dance in the sun-drenched air, and the sweetly read vows are sealed with a kiss. But when reality sets in, we remember our vows with parentheses, vows that prep for divorce, that quite frankly, sound like these. My dearly beloved, I take thee to be my spouse, to have and to hold from this day on, unless, of course, I meet someone else. For better or for worse, and when I say worse, really not so bad. Like I'm gonna leave you if you break my heart or make me mad. For richer or for poorer, unless you don't give me the lifestyle I desire, cause then I'll take you to court with the best lawyer I can hire. Sickness and in health, I'm hoping on the health one here, for it would be a huge drain on my life, giving you care. To love and to cherish, till death do us part. If I don't fall out of love, I'll leave that up to my heart. So actually, this promise is more of a hope that shifts with the tide of emotions, that allows for a change of dedication and a deviation of devotion. It seems that this kind of promise isn't working so well, because our culture is a mess, as far as I can tell. When over 50% of marriages end in divorce, it seems as though most couples aren't going back to the source. You see, marriage has a maker that clearly states its role and mission. When you don't know the creator, you start messing with the definition. And beyond that, the youth aren't even thinking husband and wife, because a hookup and move on is the day game of life. leaving so many lost in the aftermath of lust-ridden greed, that to feel loved again means that game is their need. Once stood little girls, where dreams of white dresses were definite, but disenchanted by a godless example, instead chose friends with benefits. It's a cultural norm, this idea, that love is uncontrollable, that somehow its unyielding power allows a marriage to be disposable. But the true power of love is it's not envious or boastful. It's not irritable, insistent, impatient, or resentful. The potency it holds is the steadfast trust to believe that love is worth the fight even when it's not what you receive. There is another refreshment that comes from this trust. It's understanding that fundamentally, it's not about us. The only success stories of marriages I have heard are the ones with struggles and failures, but in the end, they keep their word. I know that a marriage with brokenness, hardship, and failure makes room for a savior, redeemer, and healer. This glorious vision of marriage is an example of Christ's unfailing sacrifice. The King of the universe gave up his freedom, his comfort, his life. Let's testify to all humanity that this promise holds God's glory. Love to point the broken world to the author of the great love story.
I was lost and alone. You brought me home. I'm not the me I used to be. You set me free. You set me free. My heart's beating to a different story. Chasing after all your endless glory. Running wildly into all you are. Your love is capturing my heart.
So that's something that you guys can practically share, with your friends, your teenagers. It won't be, maybe 5 years from now, you'll make that decision of marriage. Your friends will, and to have, the foundation of this kind of truth is so important. And we understand that strong families develop strong societies, and strong marriages create strong families. So please do use that as a tool. Again, it's spokenwordforhim.com. All right. So on the subject the other day, we were talking about this big orange bus. Anyone see this bus at all on TV? All right. So you can see here, this is the free speech bus. It's biology. Boys are boys and always will be. Girls are girls and always will be. This is a 2-minute clip. Channel 5 did a story on this, and I want to show you parts of this whole clip, and then I want to pause it at certain parts just so you can hear certain things that are kind of crazy, but here we go.
Message on the side of our bus: boys are boys, girls are girls, and always will be. But calling for free speech is not a hateful message. It's not meant to single anybody out.
The free speech bus definitely brought out the transgender community.
Trans lives are unprotected! What do we do? Stand up, fight back!
Police patrolled every bus stop and tried to prevent vandalism, like graffiti tagging in Cambridge.
He needs to move the bus, sir. He's leaving.
I'm not a sir.
What are you then?
I am not a man or a woman.
Did you get that? Now we laugh, okay, but here's the guy, in his black scarf.
Got a mask on his face.
Okay, and he said, you know what he said? So the cops say, you need to move, sir. Says, I am talking to the cop, says, I am not a sir. And the cop says, well, what are you? He goes, oh, I am neither her nor him.
Foolish.
Okay, it is foolishness.
Foolish.
It is unbelievable. But this is the kind of stuff that we're up against. And we need to bring truth to these people. I mean, they are suffering.
Yes.
They are suffering.
Yes.
And we need to come to the rescue with the truth that makes
As the bus rolled from Boston to Cambridge, Mayor Marty Walsh had an impromptu transgender flag-raising ceremony at Boston City Hall to support the LGBTQ community.
But when you deny the experience of transgender individuals, You are denying the experience of basic human civil rights.
You're a lying woman.
In Boston and Massachusetts, we are better than that.
I don't think that kind of fluid area of self-identification is a good basis for public policy.
Organizers want their bus to be a visual platform, reinvigorating national discussions.
They're saying that we're preaching hate, but we're just preaching our opinion, and we're saying our opinion, and I think that
they're the ones that are swearing at us and yelling and screaming. People should, be respectful that that's their opinion, and if it's not your opinion, so be it, and it's a place to create a discussion.
The bus will be in Connecticut tomorrow. It will end its tour on Sunday in D.C. Other sponsors include Citizen Go and the International Organization for Family. Live in Boston, Rondella Richardson, WCBB News Center 5.
So two of those girls, the two younger girls that you saw being interviewed, they go to our youth group at the church, and so they were down with us doing some interviews at the bus. But again, ways that you can get involved as young people in your community. So I want to talk about just some other ways that you can practically get involved. Again, I can't say enough about this book. I think I have 3 copies, or actually looks like 1 copy left. But please take this to your church. Like I said, it's relevant to Massachusetts, but really we deal with all the same issues. So whatever state you're involved in, please do take a look at it. At the very least, take my card. On the back of my card is the website to the curriculum, and you can look at the videos there and order the books online as well. So each chapter of the book ends with some practical things that you can do to be involved. So obviously the first thing we can do is to pray for the men and women in our government. So how often do we take the time? I asked you the other night, do we know the names of our senator, our state senator? Do we know the names of our state rep? Okay, and pray for them by name. Find out who it is and pray for them by name. Also, make your vote count on informed decisions. So I think a lot of the stuff that I brought out 2 nights ago, how many, by raising your hand, was it kind of the first time you had found out about some of that stuff? And maybe to that amount of detail, okay? Get informed on the issues in your state, okay? Go to your state house, get involved. There's a Family Policy Alliance in 40 of the 50 states, okay? So most likely your state has a Family Policy Alliance like Massachusetts Family Institute. Partner with them. Go to their office and volunteer, whether it's just putting out mailers or whatever it is. Many of you homeschool. What a great opportunity. You have some flexibility in your schedule. Take the time to go there and help them out. Write letters, as Mr. Shurtleff said, to the editor. Get involved with your local newspaper. Find out who the newspaper is in your town or in your region and write a letter and get in the rhythm of doing that. Especially, again, as homeschoolers, I know personally we're always looking for like homeschool projects. So, let that be a homeschool project. Let's see, some other things we can do. Be a 2-minute activist. When's the last time you called your rep or called your senator, okay? And better yet, even made an appointment at their office and went down and actually had a face-to-face conversation with them. It's a great experience and a great way to have experience even talking to someone about an issue maybe that you disagree on. So it's a great way to get that kind of experience and make a difference. If you're a parent, or even if you're a kid in public schools, make sure to opt your child out from the sex ed at the beginning of the school year. Okay? So know what the curriculum is that you're being taught, and you have the option to opt out. So make sure to do that. If you are also make an appointment with your local school to inspect the sex ed curriculum. There was a parent, I think in Lexington, maybe 10 years ago, back in, I think it was kindergarten, they had a book that was talking about 2 moms and 2 dads, and they went to their school and, made a big deal about the issue, as they should have. They came up against a lot of persecution, but that is part of the Christian life, right?
Right.
Blessed are you when you are persecuted, right? Even I think it's in Luke, woe to you when men speak what of you? Highly, right? If you're living a comfortable Christian life, I think you might have to re-examine what you're doing with your life.
Right, good point.
Be proactive and talk to your children about God's design for marriage and for sex. Again, be a 2-minute activist. Know the bills, know the Senate bills and the House bills in your town or region. We talked about the counseling ban, for example. Know what the HR number is or the Senate bill number is of that, and call your rep and your senator in regard to that. Also, let's see here. Explore the resources available from Focus on the Family and share them with your church. Focus on the Family has a ton of resources on these particular issues. So, go online, research these issues, and go to your pastor, go to your elder, go to your deacon at your church. And, if you have a copy of this book, give them the book. Or encourage them and say, hey, we're dealing with these issues, in our town. I've talked to our senator, I've talked to our rep. Can we teach this as a curriculum in our Sunday school, or can we teach it in our youth group, or can we teach it, in our small group? Maybe you guys have a lot of cell groups in your church. This is something that can be an 8-week study in your cell groups. Also, let's see. There's a book that we've put out with Alliance Defending Freedom, which is one of those quote-unquote hate groups that's defined under the Southern Poverty Center. So Alliance Defending Freedom and us, we put out this thing called Protecting Your Ministry. Every pastor should have a copy of this. I have copies at the table. Please take one and give it to your pastor at your church. But this goes over very specific cases all over the United States. In this particular volume is the one where the 4 churches in Massachusetts sued the Attorney General. So if you're in Massachusetts especially, read up on that. Find out more information about it. Tell your pastor, hey, Alliance Defending Freedom is there to protect you, when you have a religious liberty issue, okay? I can think of 2 religious liberty issues with the transgender bathroom bill, right, where churches were considered public accommodations. There's the religious liberty issue under the counseling ban now, where if you are a 17-year-old or younger and you want to be counseled out of an LGBTQ lifestyle, you don't have that right anymore if you live in New Jersey or in California, okay? And also if you're a licensed therapist and you want to counsel someone out of an LGBTQ lifestyle that's under 17, you don't have that right anymore. And if you have the gall to do that, you would be prosecuted as a child abuser. So I would say that would be a violation of your religious liberty and of your free speech, right? If you're 17, you should have the right to want to be counseled the way that you want to be counseled, okay? And I would say the way that the Bible would teach us to be counseled. So take this and give this to your leaders in your church, and also just as a family, read through it. Take one of these. This, if you guys have friends, I know some of you came up to me this week and said, yeah, what you talked about pot, I have friends that take it and don't think it's a big deal. Take this pamphlet and give it to your friend. This will explain the health risks of pot, okay? And just like I said, the big marijuana is what used to be big tobacco, okay? It's the same thing. In 10, 20 years from now, it's going to be obvious to all society the dangers and the health risks. So take that. If you live in Massachusetts or just over the border, you want to support what MFI does. We have an annual banquet coming up in October, and we'd love to have a Camp Constitution table and have you guys come out and support us and listen to our special speaker, Hugh Hewitt. Last year we had Ravi Zacharias come, which was great. But please take a postcard with you if that's something that you'd like to join us. It's a wonderful night. You find out more about what MFI has been doing in Massachusetts and these different stories I've been telling you. By then, we would probably had a vote on the counseling ban, so hopefully we'll have a success story on the counseling ban come October. So please do take one of those with you. And there's all kinds of ways you can be involved. And I think the last thing I'll say is, have you ever been told that Christians should not be involved in politics?
Of course.
Have you guys anyone raise your hand? Has anyone ever told you that? Well, have you ever had a good message to give back to them. I mean, I know a lot of times we talk about when Jesus says in Matthew to be salt and light, right? And that's a great biblical foundation. Well, let me give you some other biblical ammunition, if you will. Does anyone know what James 1:27 says? It talks about the true definition of religion. You know how James, the brother of Jesus, defines true religion? He says it's taking care of the widows and the orphans, right? And to keep yourself from being what?
Unspotted by the world.
That's right, to be polluted by the world, okay? So that's the three-pronged definition. Are you taking care of widows? Are you taking care of orphans? And are you keeping yourself from being polluted by this world, okay? No one would argue in our churches, I think, that that's a good definition of religion. All right, well, when that comes to politics, how does that relate to politics? What we talk about in the first chapter of the book is that many of you may not know, in Massachusetts there's a thing called Catholic Charities, okay? Catholic Charities fostered and adopted thousands of orphans, okay? Back in 2003, 2004, they stopped. They got out of foster care and adoption. Does anyone know why?
I think didn't it have something to do with the fact that they were not willing to send children into LGBTQ families?
Exactly. This was around the time that marriage was being redefined in Massachusetts. And Massachusetts happened to be the first state, right, to okay homosexual marriage. Well, at the same time, the Catholic Charities was going to be sued if they decided not to put a child into a homosexual home. Okay, and my wife and I could talk about this personally because we just had DCF at our home tell us that we were an unviable family because we didn't share the same values as DCF, Department of Children and Families. Okay, so Catholic Charities got out of foster care and adoption, and in large part, not just because LGBTQ was so strong, but because we were so silent. And so who loses in that situation? The orphan. The orphan loses, right? So are we keeping the definition of religion? No. Okay, well, what about the widow? Okay, back in 2012, if you're in Massachusetts, you might remember we had assisted suicide on the ballot, okay? Now, assisted suicide got defeated by like 2%. It was like 51-49% in Massachusetts, okay? Now, if we were not to stand up and defeat assisted suicide, who would lose out? Who would lose out if that becomes the law of the land? The widow, right? The widow. We talk about that in our book. I just want to read to you one statistic that I think will blow your mind. But you only need to look to Europe to understand what's going on with assisted suicide. Belgium and the Netherlands decriminalized euthanasia and assisted suicide in 2002. As of 2010 in Belgium, 32% of physician-assisted suicide deaths, 1 in 3, were without explicit consent from the patient. Do you want that to happen to you? When you're in old age and you don't give consent on your death? In the Netherlands, euthanasia for anyone over the age of 70 who is quote-unquote tired of living is now being considered. You think there's people out there that are over 70 that are tired of living and that, they want to go to the doctor to be prescribed death? Is that the kind of culture that we want to live in? So again, the orphan and the widow are part of our religion, right? And we need to be standing up for laws that are going to protect them. Yes?
You said in that state that 1 in 3 euthanasias were without explicit consent.
Correct.
So 1 in 3 euthanasias are murders.
Well, I mean, you could definitely look at it that way. I mean, if you're not giving consent to your death, you can definitely see it that way.
That's not euthanasia. It's just murder.
There's $2.6 billion of elderly abuse every year. Now think about this. If it's a law in the books to be able to take somebody's life by prescription, okay, well, what if you have like the prodigal son that wants his inheritance a little earlier, right? And your mom or dad, they're aging. Do you think you might have some incentive to maybe want to end their life a little? I mean, not you, but people might have some incentive. And if it's the law of the land to take life a little easier, so this definitely becomes a slippery slope. The last thing I'll say is on the religious liberty end of this whole definition of religion and why Christians should be involved in politics. again, religious liberties, okay? And we've talked about this. If it weren't for MFI and Alliance Defending Freedom, when you go to your church in Massachusetts, you could be fined up to $50,000 or sent to jail for up to a year if you were found discriminating against a man that identified as a woman who was in your daughter's bathroom or in your daughter's shower at your local gym, okay? And just think about that. You can't, if you're in Massachusetts and you go to the local gym and you take a shower as a girl, let's say, and there's a legitimate dude in your shower with you, okay, you cannot discriminate against that dude, okay? And if you are found to discriminate and he ends up suing you, you could be liable for up to $50,000 and go to jail for up to a year of how the law currently stands in Massachusetts, okay? So clearly there is a mandate for Christians to be involved in politics, okay? And we as the church are the easiest opponent because anytime we label something politics, we're like, we can't talk about it, right? Well, we need to talk about it, and we are the most organized body of people in all of America. There's 350,000 churches in America. There's no reason we should be losing this culture war with the amount of organization that we have as Christians. Okay, so encourage your youth leaders, encourage your parents, encourage your pastors to get involved, and at the very least to teach a curriculum like this and start the conversation at your church, in your family, so that we can strengthen and protect the family together. Any other questions?